Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nate Crespi, your host for today and forever, and welcome back to another episode of the Lawyers in the Making podcast, where it is my job to focus on the unique journeys to the law and law school of professionals in the legal field and law students. But let's talk about what we're doing today, because today we have another incredible guest. He's a Fordham University School of Law graduate and currently works as the Director of Legal for North America at KION North America. He's held past positions as a senior attorney at McGovern Legal Services and as an associate at Cadwalader, Wickersham, and Taft. Excited to have him on the podcast today, Mr. Scott Penick. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today? Before going any further, I'd like to say a quick word about the sponsor of this podcast, Rhetoric. Back in episode 25, I had the privilege of having the CEO, Luke Yingling, on the podcast, and ever since that episode, fell in love with the product. Rhetoric takes user briefs and motions and compares them against the text of opinions written by judges to identify ways to tailor their arguments to better persuade the judges handling their cases. Rhetoric's focus on persuasion and helps users find new ways to improve their odds of success through more persuasive arguments. Know more, win more. I was able to see a demo of the product, and its cutting-edge technology and fascinating features make for a product I am proud to sponsor, and further shows the new digital era the field of law has been entering thus far on my journey doing this podcast. If you decide to book a demo, let them know Nate sent you. Be sure to check them out in the show notes below or at userhetoric.com. One word, userhetoric.com. Now, back to the show.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be here. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Hopefully I can share some little tidbits of wisdom or experience that help somebody else. So.
Of course. Well, I am happy to have you here today, Scott. But before we get started, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. You gave a quick version there, a little bit of my work history, but grew up, did not know any attorneys, and started to kind of found my way to the law after talking to professors and whatnot at and advisors in undergrad, and then started aiming myself towards corporate law. And for whatever reason, or a lot of different reasons, I stayed on that path and found my way here. But grew up in South Carolina, spent a lot of time though in other places. Moved around Arkansas for college, graduate school in Atlanta, Georgia, law school in Fordham, as you mentioned, and worked and lived in, worked in New York, and also lived in New Jersey and worked in both states. But so a little bit of a winding path, and now I'm back home. I consider it home, South Carolina, Charleston area. Hopefully never have to leave again. Who knows what the future might hold. I got 4 kids, huge part of my life. Just dropped the oldest one off at college, which is really hard to believe. I'm old enough to have a kid in college now who's legally an adult and and all that, and married for almost 23 years, also a huge part of my life. So and we recently got 1 dog, so might add that to the last year I finally gave in and got the kids a dog. So it's been a good addition. Thankfully got a good dog. So yeah.
Well, of course, I have to give my late congratulations on the wonderful 4 children and the 23 years of marriage. That is a wonderful thing. I hope to have a family myself. And it's funny enough that you're dropping your oldest kid off at college as my parents are dropping their kid off this Friday for their last year of college. Yeah. So I'm the last of 3. I'm the youngest to go. I'm about to be a legal adult, 21 years old. So Trust me, Scott, you'll be there one day, but you got a little time. My parents have been through it all. So let's go back all the way back in time. Wonderful year, 2002. You were at Harding University getting a degree in economics, but you were also a cross-country and track athlete. You were academic All-American as well as All-Conference, All-Region in cross-country. Now, later that year, you would find yourself at Georgia State University, J. Mac Robinson College of Business. You did that for 2 years, and then you would end up at Fordham University School of Law. So, through all those experiences, through all that going on, simply put, Scott, why'd you go to law school?
I went to law school really to be a better, well, I wasn't a business person yet, but I thought it was a good way to have an important role in business. I really was always very business minded. I loved the study, all my business classes and undergrad. Frankly, as my economics professor said in my history of economics class, he said, economics is history. This is why people do things. And let's just be honest, this is why a lot of people do things. And so I just thought the law, was a challenge. I like a challenge. And I thought it would be a challenging, high value way to be, kind of get a jump start in business. I don't know if that was accurate or not. It definitely is a high value way to add to business, but maybe there would have been other routes that would have been just as satisfying to me, but this one's working out pretty well. So yeah, I can't claim to have wanted to, like, create world peace or solve world hunger, although I care about those things. That wasn't like part of my aspirations as becoming an attorney. So yeah.
So, in deciding to go to business school originally, when you decided to go to business school, did you always have your eyes set on going to law school, or was it just something you had in your head and you're like, maybe it will happen after business school, maybe it won't?
I business school, I had planned on law school from the beginning. Business school did definitely give me pause. I wasn't sure if I was going to still go to law school for various reasons. One was um, just been in school a long time at that point. I was kind of ready to start making money. I was married already and kind of felt a little guilty that my wife was carrying so much of the economic burden, and she was a social worker, and that is a tough job working for the state, dealing with child abuse and neglect. And she I was just kind of ready to pull my weight. And so I did seriously consider going straight into the workforce after uh, my MBA was complete. But I went both routes. I applied to law school, took the LSAT, did all that stuff. And but I also was less seriously, but still looking at the possibility of going straight into the workforce. And really the reason I didn't was a right or wrong reason, especially when you're an adult, you have to start making your own decisions. But my dad was really like, listen, if you don't go, you're always going to question whether you should have went. I don't know if that's true or not, because I went, so I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't gone. But but I went, and did pretty well. And that the rest is history in some ways. So yeah.
So you did indeed go. You ended up at Fordham University School of Law in the year of 2004. Now, we always love talking about that first year of law school. Some people hate it, some people love it. How was it for you, Scott?
I enjoyed the classes, enjoyed my fellow students. I have to say, in all honesty, though, I really underestimated the competition. The fact that everybody was smart, and and I was married, commuting an hour and a half each way to school, had other things going on in life, was very active in a new church in New Jersey and was trying to give a lot of time to that. Um, and so it was a challenge, really underestimated my classmates and the fact that, in a first year class of 80, only 8 of you, as the professor said, only 8 of you really smart people who are used to making A's can get an A, because that's the rule. So it was, but I enjoyed it, other than that rude awakening, I guess. And you only get 2 chances, or maybe even 1, to make that A. So as far as tests go, you might get 2 tests or something like that, or 1, or even just a final. So
Now, that hour and a half commute, you were coming from New Jersey, I assume, correct?
yes.
Exactly. I know New Jersey very, very well. My mother is actually from New Jersey. She comes
Yeah.
from Metuchen, then moved to Morristown. So I know Morristown very well, not so much Metuchen.
Yeah.
But as you went on in your law school career, you would become a law clerk at the New Jersey Department of Families and Children's Services. And then that next year, you'd become a summer associate at WTAS. So, can
Right.
you talk about those experiences? And as well, what I love talking about on this podcast, the significance of finding out what you want to do with the law in terms of specialization, but also finding out what you don't want to do. So you're able to sort of narrow your options. So in those experiences, were you able to narrow your options, find out what you didn't want to do and did want to do?
Yes, that experience with the Department of Family and Children's Services for the state of New Jersey, one, um, that's where my wife was working. I mentioned she was a social worker, and so she talked to the head attorney, and they're like, "Yeah, we actually, I do have room in my budget for summer clerk," and so I did not think I ever wanted to, work in family law or whatever, but what it was a good experience was seeing um, the government side behind the scenes of the law. Meeting with some deputy attorney generals, just getting to know them, and also even being able to see some statutory drafting process was really interesting. I think helpful and insightful. And then, later in my career, when I ended up spending some time in court, those are also state employees, and it just so it was good experience, and paid me a little bit, not much. You're poor, we were just both in school poor, and every little bit helps. So sometimes you also just need to make some money. At WTAS, Wealth Tax Advisory Service, that was former Arthur Andersen partners during the period of time where they were not allowed to be Arthur Andersen post Enron, and learned a lot there. Yeah, about tax. I really did enjoy tax, and they had a lot of accountants, but they had a lot of JD slash CPAs too. So um, made some really good relationships there. Very, really appreciate that opportunity. Just to be perfectly honest, the compensation just wasn't going to allow me to provide for my family. I was offered an opportunity to start there, and at least at the time, it just didn't seem like something I could accept because of the cost of living, and just school loans were going to come due 6 months after graduation. That is a real harsh reality of graduation. If you didn't have scholarship or someone else paying for your school. And thankfully I did have scholarship and graduate assistantship that paid for undergrad and my graduate degree, but not law school. So the law school loans were still basically a mortgage that I was going to have to pay in addition to my real living, my actual housing expense. So that's why I didn't end up there, but it was a great experience to work with, really, I think truly some of the best tax advisors around. And now they've gone on. They were able to again use the name of their Anderson Tax now, and I think they extracted themselves from HSBC, just to be more independent or whatever. But yeah, learned a lot of good things there. So
Of course. So moving forward in your career, following your time in law school, you then became an associate at Cadwalader. I'm gonna really butcher these names here. I don't.
Cadwalader. It took me a while to be able to pronounce it too. Cadwalader. Yeah, Cadwalader, Wickersham, and Taft.
Thank you for saying it because I was gonna butcher it so bad. My apologies to those people who have wonderful last names that I just struggled to speak of. But you were an associate there for a year. So can you talk about that experience? I know from looking around that this is a very big law firm, very prominent law firm. I've never heard of them before, but speak on your experience.
Yeah, sure. Well, to your point that you were just saying you hadn't heard of them before, that's kind of the law. There's no big four of the law like there is in the accounting world, where it seems like everyone in business has kind of heard of them. The firms are even the big firms are much smaller, and even the prestigious firms that think they're very special nobody's heard of them. And, knowing they're like, oh, I work here. And like, unless they're also a lawyer and have just happened to know, like, they probably have no idea, nobody's heard of where you work. It was a great experience to the extent that like, there's, there's nobody better at what they did as far as like serving Wall Street and asset-backed securities and mortgage-backed securities. If you know anything about 2008, just me mentioning mortgages might let you know I was only there for a year. So I learned from the best. Unfortunately, there was not enough work going on. Bear Stearns goes out of business. Lehman Brothers goes out of business. These are historic investment banks and big clients of, I'm sure, not just Cadwalader, but anyone servicing the financial services world, and they go out of business. So you have huge clients suddenly gone overnight, essentially. And there was just a real lack of business, and there was an extreme bloodbath across many firms that serve Wall Street. And so that's why I was only there for a year. It wasn't intentionally, it wasn't because I didn't like it. I wanted to be there. I had in my mind at least 5 or 6 years, and then I would be making the decision of, do I like this and want to go for partner, or do I want to find something else? But sometimes life just deals you a set of situations that take some choice away. How you respond to it is the choice that you're left with, no matter what. And so that's kind of what caused me to leave there. Yeah, really wish I had longer to be there and experience that firm. Still a great firm. A lot of the partners that were there when I was there are still there. So, I mean, people stick around, especially the partners there, at least in my department. And, it's still very respected today. But yeah, that was a long time ago now. So,
So, in making that decision, and the financial crisis and all of the one of the worst recessions in the history of the world,
yeah.
in making that decision to decide, okay, I got to walk away from this. I don't want to, but I have to. What sort of framework are you using in terms of, getting that life curveball and now I got to respond to it. So what's your sort of thought process there? I guess putting yourself back in that moment many, many years ago, if you can.
Sure. Well, it really wasn't my decision. It was a layoff. They laid off 130 attorneys that year, and I was one of them. It was kind of a last in, first out, although there were some more senior people that got let go as well. And so the decision was, what do I do now? And what happened was, because my department was so focused on capital markets and mortgage-backed securities, we were really at the bullseye of that recession. And think of the rings around the bullseye. Well, that's what started happening in the economy as well. Is I may have been at the bullseye, but those rings kept catching up to me as I almost had opportunities at some other large firms that then initiated hiring freezes or maybe even layoffs of their own. And so doors kind of closed just before I could walk through them, to be quite honest. And that was certainly one of, if not the absolute hardest, period of my life, definitely the hardest period of my life career wise, because between the layoffs at Cadwalader and my next full-time job was 17 months. And so in between was a lot of survival mode, scrappiness. It took me a while to accept that another big law firm like Cadwalader might not be the next place I end up. And so I started applying for opportunities at smaller firms that were less impacted for whatever reason, and we're still growing and we're still hiring. And in the meantime, I also did contract work, which is very humbling. It was very humbling, but it was money, And so the first contract job I took, it was 60 hours in person, but that was also me commuting to New York. So basically it was like 6 14-hour days. It was Monday through Saturday, six total, door to door and back home, 6 14-hour days to get paid hourly. take a mandatory lunch, like punch a clock. Um, but honestly, when I first got that job, just earning a paycheck again and not collecting an unemployment check, which was a joke, anyway, um, felt good. As humbling as it was, it felt good to earn money again. And so I went through several of those assignments, and then eventually um, was hired at McGovern, and I'm thankful for that opportunity. Although that was also very humbling. It was a small firm and significantly less, as you might imagine, than a big Wall Street law firm paid. So it was a real restart. Um, um, Career and finances. Yeah.
So you indeed go to McGovern Legal Services. You became a senior attorney there. You're a senior attorney there for almost 12 years. It's a very long
Yeah.
time. But in terms of, what was that feeling when you go back in there, you're working at the Wall Street, big Wall Street firm, and now you're, I'm not saying they're little, but of course there is a change in size, and it's sort of you're beginning again. You got
Yeah.
to be at the highs, and now you're back at square one. So how was, working through being back at square one? And then can you talk about I mean, 12 years is a long time, so you stuck around. So can you talk about the experience, all 12 years?
Yeah, sure. Well, I didn't start as a senior attorney. I just, I didn't update all the steps along the way,
Yeah.
of course, because, I'm only a couple of years out of law school or so by the time I'm starting there, 2.5 years or something like that out of law school. And I'll just add this: after my original interview, I didn't get the offer, but I got a really nice handwritten note from the founder of the firm, and part of the note was like, I think you're awesome, but I can't imagine you'd want to come here because you used to be at this big Wall Street firm. And that was something I kept running against, making that trying to realizing that I had to make a transition essentially to a smaller firm. None of them thought I would stay. And so I basically then went back to him. I was like, what do I do? I actually talked to my neighbor, uh, because it's like, hey, man, what do you think? You're a little older. And he's like, write him a note, man. Tell him, whatever, that you're willing to start over and all that. And so I kind of wrote, I said, I got, and I could, and he hadn't even given me a card, and his email wasn't on his website, but I just kind of figured it out um from the office administrator's email. I guessed it what his email was. So I email and I'm like, I got your note. I appreciate it. I wanted to tell, I am a scrappy person. He was a college athlete too, so he kind of understands what it's like. As you mentioned earlier, I was a college athlete, and being a distance runner kind of requires you to be, scrappy, really. And not that other things don't, but you deal with a lot of pain and overcoming pain and working through it. And so I said, look, I realize and I'm willing to restart. I don't expect to be where I was, at my prior job as far as income and things like that. And he's like, let's do breakfast. And so we met at a diner, as you know, you live, I think in Long Island or something like that. You
Of
may have mentioned,
course.
but
Diners on every
New
block.
York and New Jersey, yeah. I mean, a diner is the official state restaurant or whatever. And so, not as much in South Carolina. But anyway, so we went to a diner, we had breakfast, we talked about money, actually, salary. And then it was actually a few weeks, and he called me as I shortly after Christmas and offered me a job and started. But anyway, it was still hard. It was exciting to have a full-time job again, to feel like I wasn't going to have to not be a lawyer, like figure out some other job because, oh, nobody's ever going to hire me as a lawyer, now that I've had this big career gap, and that I filled with things and, doing some stuff, but being so early in my career. So it was tough. It was really humbling. Some of the work that you do at a small firm, it's not glamorous, and it's like real world. It's like the real world. So I, to be honest, started learning law that has a lot more to do with regular people, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, like uh, and learning more practical law, to be honest, and it was a broader application. I think I'm confident I became a better attorney faster because at a small firm you also take on more responsibility sooner. It's just the nature of it. Um, and so, but it was tough, and but they stuck it out with me too. I really was down. I was very down and tried to overcome that because once I settled in a little bit, it was like, okay, I mean, it's good. I got something full time, but to be honest, it was like I felt, as much as I appreciate that I was there 12 years, I felt like I had fallen so far. And all the plans and dreams and things that I knew were going to happen were now uncertain. And I had to kind of reinvent. Yeah. So it was a challenge. It was a challenge, man.
No, I mean, I more than appreciate, as much as everyone out there who is listening, that all that raw honesty you're giving us here. Now, we talk about reinvention. How did you reinvent yourself here at McGovern Legal Services?
Yeah. I mean, first you just have to become good at the work, right? So I had to really learn. And a lot of the learning there was you get thrown in the pool a little more and just learn how to swim, versus like, man, a big law firm where investment banks are your client, they don't let you loose very soon. You're not, you know what I mean? You're not in direct contact with really important matters very early. And of course, even being young there, at McGovern, I didn't handle the biggest matters, and things like that. But really a lot of it was just being thrown right in and going at it full in and learning to take initiative. And those were some of the things, honestly, that I got praised the most for early on, is when I took initiative, even like, a property that was the subject of concern for a client. I just decided, not during the workday, not billing anybody hours for it. I just went by and physically looked at it and walked around and all of that, and then was able to give like a real update because the client representatives hadn't even physically been over there, and I just physically went by. And my boss was like, "That's good lawyering." So really reframe. You don't do that on the 31st floor of a skyscraper in Manhattan, usually. I don't think as often. Let me just walk over. I mean, maybe if you're in real estate law, you want to walk over and see the building or something. But anyway, just doing practical things like that and being proactive. That was very much rewarded, and learning that, but then just, you got to learn the stuff. You got to throw yourself into learning the applicable law and being pretty quick on figuring out that new thing that somebody just called with, so which I like to learn. So that's just something I'm kind of blessed with. It's in my nature. I just love learning new things. I get bored doing the same thing over and over. So the variety of the practice that I was in actually was a strong point for me because it kept my mind interested to learn that new thing and become good at it. You got to try hard. You got to put in the hours. You got to be proactive. Why? Smartly proactive. Um, don't don't take too big of a step. There's some judgment involved there. Don't. And I also learned from making some mistakes. I remember coming back after court one time and sitting down and kind of debriefing and getting chewed out a little bit because I hadn't done something. And man, you don't forget that, sitting down and and just feeling that anxiety. One, having just earlier been sitting in a judge's chambers, which was a new experience for me at the time and kind of intimidating, with an attorney who was like as old as my dad, as the other side's counsel. And then I go back and talk with my boss and like get a little bit chewed out for something I didn't do. All worked out fine, all worked out well. Client was happy, but he was like, you should have done this. Now you got to call the client and make sure it's okay. And and the client was cool with it. So, thank goodness. But trial and error is a little bit of it. Yeah. So.
Of course, you always got to be experimenting, always got to figure out if something is right or not. But you only find out if you try it, and you might mess up and be wrong and be really, really wrong. But you learn from those mistakes, you move on, and you do better. But your love for learning, your business mindedness eventually came back because you would do some coursework in business analytics at Cornell University. And then after doing that, you would co-found and be the chief health nut at Soul Shake. Now, the shake is not spelled like shake. It's got all these weird letters which I couldn't put on my sheet, but I wish I could, and I could say it like that. But can you talk about founding Soul Shake and why you went to Cornell University to do some postgraduate work?
Well, those were that was a certificate course that I did remotely. So I don't want to oversell it. And to be honest, one of the reasons I did that was I was trying to just create opportunity for an in-house role one day. And it was a great deal. Actually, I didn't fully complete it. To be completely honest, I didn't fully complete all the courses in that business analytics program, but I don't think there's a better bang for buck than some of those certificate courses that Cornell offers. Because I was looking at some other Ivy League schools and programs they offered, and it's like at a zero to what Cornell was charging. So that's one reason I chose Cornell's excellent coursework and really got me back into Excel and just dealing with data and at a lot more advanced level. So the coursework I did do in the program, really helped me, I think, prepare. And now being in-house, I do look at that a lot. But you also asked about Soul Shakes. And yeah, I kind of came up with a stylistic spelling there for trademarking purposes and stuff like that. But and I did close it down at the end of last year, and I could talk about that. But I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I love health and fitness. And my wife and I decided we would make a go at that, which doesn't, maybe is not the best way to put it, but that we would invest in and start this company. So I came up with the name. Maybe I should have used it. I think that was like idea 93. I kept this running list in a Google Drive file of like name ideas, and so I think that was like idea 93 or something for names, company names. Did reach out to a person I know in marketing at a big food company to at least conceptually get an idea of how to think about a good name. So she did give me some of those tips pro bono. But I came up with a majority of the formula and ingredients, and then I partnered with a contract manufacturing company that specializes in supplements, which is probably what a majority of the supplements out there that you're seeing are. It's that company doesn't necessarily own all the equipment and everything. There's a company that specializes in manufacturing these things and having the right environment and equipment and scale to allow you to come in as a small player to get started. So I partnered with them to finalize it. This is what they do, and they had specialists and whatnot. But worked with a designer on Fiverr to design the packaging and the logo. So you don't need a ton of money to do that. And I probably spent on all the design work less than $250.
Wow.
And I think that guy in Bangladesh was really happy with what I did. I don't feel guilty about it. I mean, we negotiated the price, and I think it was pretty good going rate for for what he was doing where he was. How to find the packaging provider, because I didn't want the kind of packaging that the outsourced contract manufacturing company would provide, because they only provide those big tubs. And what I hate about those big tubs as a user of the products, sports nutrition products and stuff, was that whether there's 100 scoops in it or one scoop, it's still a gigantic tub. It's not portable. You can't travel with it. So I wanted the bags that basically compress down, and Ziploc seal, and, you could easier to travel, because, you want to take your nutrition with you when you travel and stuff like that. And trying to put a milk, like basically like trying to take a milk jug with you with these other things, you got to get your own Ziploc bags out then and like scoop it out into them. Anyway, I wanted the bags, so I had to find that manufacturer. I had to buy the minimum, like, I think I bought like 3,000 bags initially. They did not all get sold, but and manufactured. I learned a lot through that process about business, doing the marketing. I built the Shopify website myself with the Shopify, like, pre-built tools. I don't remember, maybe I paid for a little bit for one that was a little nicer than the standard that comes with it. It was such a great way to start. There's so many great tools right now. And really what I learned through it all was I should have spent less on initial inventory, and way more on marketing. Getting the word out is the thing, especially in a competitive space like sports nutrition. There's so many supplements and things out there. I just really underestimated. This is back to my I underestimated my classmates in law school, and I underestimated the energy / resources it would take to create enough awareness through marketing, to get the sales that were needed to really make sense to keep the business running. And so if I did it again, still own the company, but it's not operating, or maybe if I do something else, I would definitely focus on putting as many resources as possible as getting the word out, creating demand, and create that demand really for any business is a key, because no demand, you can have the best product in the world and nobody knows about it. You don't sell any, you don't make any money, you don't stay in business. We had happy customers, just not enough of them. So it just didn't justify keeping it open. Also having a perishable product, I was going to have to buy more inventory, minimum purchase. I was like, I just cannot justify this investment. I knew I didn't have the energy to put into it. Also, when I started the company, I had become really dissatisfied with the job I had, and I had a new job that I was really happy with. So my energies were really focused on KION North America and the job I was really enjoying that I was at, where I had kind of become burned out at my old job, as thankful as I am that I had it for over 12 years and was looking for. So maybe too much of my motivation was also negative rather than positive. Maybe I was running away a little too much, just to be completely honest, from where I was, rather than running towards the new opportunity that I was creating. As excited as I was about it, as much as I enjoyed it, and as much as we love the product and are not looking forward to the day when my inventory in my house runs out and we have to start buying from someone else again, because we still have some at home, that my wife especially and daughters both love, and one day we're gonna have to send our check to somebody else to buy it, but
so. It's all right. Well, when that take, I'll be more than happy to take some off your hands because I'm interested now. But let's talk about KION North America. You started in 2022 as the senior corporate counsel, and this past year, you just became the director of legal for North America at KION North America. So can you talk about the experience and what exactly is KION North America? I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, let's start with what the company does. We manufacture material handling equipment, which to most people means forklifts. And I'll be honest, it's a little confusing because the company name is not the brand. So KION Group is the parent company in Frankfurt, Germany, headquartered in Frankfurt, Germany, and they own several different. They acquired. I may not get the history perfect because I wasn't there when it all happened, but they have at least three brands of material handling equipment. More than that, more than three, but three big ones that. And so we are KION North America. And in North America, we're focused on Lindy Material Handling as the brand of forklift. So hopefully you'll see more and more and more of those if you pay attention to forklifts, which but we're really strong, especially in the growing warehouse space and the kinds of material handling equipment that are used in distribution centers, warehouses, and stuff like that, and moving into automation. Those products are becoming more and more automated. You may have seen or heard about. I mean, there are warehouses out there that are dark and essentially no people operating the equipment. It's just the equipment running around, getting what it's supposed to get, picking up the deliveries, and so that's a lot of things are moving that way. So automation is a big part of what's growing there. So, but that's what we do. And something that's off resume experience of mine is my grandfather owned a construction company. I grew up working construction in the summers. And, even though, we're not making, bulldozers and backhoes and excavators and things, I also, once we got the floor down and the warehouse, we built warehouses, we operated forklifts to move things around inside. So it was really like, I could really relate. I always kind of like that blue collar, get your hands dirty, because I just grew up doing it. And when you walk away from it, you can turn around and like, look at what you did. And there's just something about it. Like there's a building there now, and there wasn't before, So I like that element of the company as well. But that's what we do. We manufacture and sell forklifts, automation equipment, and so much more that kind of like goes into that industry, intralogistics worldwide. And our North American headquarters is Somerville, which is my hometown that I had moved back to. And I had already moved back here working remotely for McGovern. I'm thankful that they gave me the opportunity to do that. My dad passed away in 2019, and then COVID happened in 2020. And I was like, it just was hitting me that you just don't know how much time you have. And you need to spend it with the people that you want to spend it with. And I made up my mind I was moving one way or another to be back home. To me, South Carolina just always remained home. I had a great childhood here, great friends, family stayed, always enjoyed continuing to visit. And so moved back. And then after I had moved back, I got recruited into this in-house job that just so happened to have its North American headquarters in my hometown. So I work on site most days, even though as we're doing this interview, I'm working from home. I do have flexibility to work from other places. And but I usually go in and like to be on site and be around people actually during the workday. So it's been a great opportunity. I'm the only attorney that's fully dedicated to KION North America. Globally, I think we have maybe like 60 attorneys, but I'm dedicated to KION North America, which means all of that generalist business law, employment law, real estate law, all the different experiences I got at the small firm where you really got to get your hands dirty and you don't know what's going to come in the door next, really came in handy now being kind of this, solo in a lot of ways. I definitely get support. Want to give credit to attorneys around the world and with our other companies who support me when I reach out, and they do it eagerly and quickly and help us punch above our weight, so to speak, as for KION North America. But so I am also the legal department at KION North America, along with being the director of it. It's me and the mouse in my pocket or on my desk here. We don't. So
I mean that's a first incredible story, very full circle, going from the construction. Now you're back into the construction. Obviously, it's just forklifts. The only time I've only seen a forklift used is on The Office when Michael, knocks down all the stuff.
yeah,
But it's also great that you came back home and it's in your freaking hometown,
I
which is
know.
It's just incredible the way that the world works sometimes. It's just
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Never makes any sense, but it kind of does make sense. It's very weird. But through doing some looking around, you are the biggest believer that the most elegant and most effective solution is the simplest one possible. So why is that true?
I think it's important to understand as an attorney that when your client comes to you, they might be asking you about the law, but they're not actually interested in the law. They have a business issue and they want to solve it, and they really wish they didn't need to come to you. So you need to find a clearest path forward. And in a perfect world, a straight line is the fastest way to get somewhere, right? It's the simplest way, right? Rather than winding around in circles or doing figure eights or complicated things. And so it to me, the simplest path isn't always simple. It might be the simplest, but it may not be simple. But that's always the goal, is to try to boil down to what are we trying to accomplish? What's the straightest path to get there? And that's something that you get better and better at as you practice. By practice, I mean work as an attorney, just through experience. You have this conception, I think, when you leave law school about all these complicated legal arguments. You read cases. Basically, you read about situations where someone didn't find a good solution, and that's why there's an opinion about it for you to read about in your book. Because they didn't find a solution. And the solution, it broke down to the point that the solution had to be through our courts, right? That's not where business owners want to end up if they can avoid it. It's expensive, it slows things down, and it's not actually moving the business forward most of the time. Sometimes you have to do it, absolutely. But so that's just kind of how I look at it. Like, what are we really trying to accomplish? And how can we get there the quickest, simplest way possible, but do it right? So, yeah, so that's.
Law students, are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or short on time in law school? Maybe you just want someone to show you a step-by-step framework to master the topics you're learning in your classes. I know the pressure you're under, and I've got the perfect solution for you. My course, the Law School Operating System, is proven to help you conquer law school with confidence and ease.
Created by Lisa Blasser, a former guest on the podcast and founder of the Law School Success Institute, this course breaks down every subject into manageable main topics that you run through a comprehensive study system to thoroughly prepare you for class and final exams. No more feeling like you need to know everything all at once in the beginning.
But that's not all, Nate. The Law School Operating System also teaches you how to schedule your studying and time effectively. For every topic, you'll know which study step you're on and when you'll complete it every week of your semester. No more mad dash cram sessions, more time with your loved ones. And with my system, you'll walk into your exams knowing you've given 100% of yourself, that there's nothing more you could have done to succeed, and there's no better confidence than that.
Lisa breaks it down like this: one class, one list of main topics, and one system to master each topic. With recorded and live sessions for students available on her website and partnerships with law schools nationwide, the Law School Operating System is here to help you thrive from day one to the final exam. Ready to take control of your law school journey and operate at your full potential in law school? Visit www.lisablasser.com today and enroll in the Law School Operating System. Be sure to use code LSOSNATE10 at checkout for 10% off the recorded course. That is code LSOSNATE10 at checkout. Now, back to the show. Of course, I think that's a beautiful way to look at things. Always got to look for the simplest. It may not be the easiest solution, but it represents a straight path to what you're looking to find, the goal that you're trying to achieve. And, if you put your intention that you're trying to reach that goal, you got the path for it, you will most likely find that goal. But Scott, we are now down to our last 5 questions. The first of the 5 questions is something I've seen throughout the entire journey of this podcast, of doing this podcast, of talking to all these guests, is that the legal industry is moving in a certain way, just like factories are moving in a certain way, that they have the dark factories that They're fully automated. There's no people in there. It's just robots. In the
Yeah.
same way, the legal space is doing the same thing. People are using AI technologies, software technologies, whatever it may be. So this is the tech stack question per se. What does your tech stack look like, and what suggestions do you have for people for any of the tech that you use or software products or whatever it may be through your daily life or at work?
Yeah. Well, I think according to statistics, I'm right in there with most attorneys where Microsoft Word is my number one tech tool, to be honest, along with Microsoft Excel, and for the numbers part. Um, we're but there's definitely an initiative underway to get more tools. Have research subscription, um, and but that what is being explored right now are CLM, contract lifecycle management tools, and whether it's incorporated in that or otherwise, how can artificial intelligence, AI, assist us in being more efficient, doing a better job. So that's a work in progress. So yeah, but believe me, I get plenty of DMs on LinkedIn from people who would like to solve that problem for me. But but yeah, that is something that we're working on. And globally, last year we got a new general counsel in Germany, and it's really focused on that, making that a priority as well. So he's not even at his 1 year anniversary yet. Great guy, and really appreciate his initiative and technology, which is something that, asked me that question. And, this time next year, I think I would have a taller stack to talk about.
Of course.
So, yeah.
I mean, listen, it's exciting times, but the future will hold. The future of technology, especially in the legal space, whatever it may look like. I mean, I don't even know what it'll look like next month, just the way that they've been advancing and advancing, and it's getting more intelligent. There's so many things it can do. But fourth to last question here, Scott, live on the Lawyers in the Making podcast. What are your book recommendations for people? Doesn't have to be about the law, just some of your favorite books, something to give a gift to someone.
I do read a lot. I'm tempted to open up and look at my Amazon account right now so I don't forget anything. The book I'm reading right now that so far is very good, I've never read it before, is Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday.
That's great.
And it was a referral, and the title kind of spoke to me, and the way the referral was given spoke to me. It wasn't a direct referral. It was just one I saw online. It wasn't someone telling me, you need to read this because you have an ego problem. Although, hey, part of the book is we all need to constantly, and I do, re-examine humility. But that seems to be, as far as I am through the book right now, a really good book on how do you want to talk about making progress, or do you want to make progress? Very, very like practical and frank, and I think that's good. Another book that I really enjoy and actually just finished reading for a second time is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will, I think, Gadara, but Unreasonable Hospitality, you would find it. And I just think he has a fantastic perspective, even though he's coming from the hospitality and restaurant world, and was, I think, former owner of 11 Madison Park, which was voted the #1 restaurant in the world in like 2017 or something like that. And I think that company owns Shake Shack too. I'm like, I've stood in line at that Shake Shack in that. Maybe you have too. You live close, maybe if you've gone into, Manhattan in that original location. But so, he has such great perspective, not just on service itself, but on the leadership too. Just thought it was great. Loved the way he approached it. So I think that's a really good book too. It's good for anyone. And being in a service industry, the law, you can really apply actually a lot of the hospitality industry to it. Obviously, we have certain rules of professional conduct and things like that, and maybe some guidelines that we have to stay within as attorneys on some of the things we do. But it's more the mentality of hospitality and relationship building with the people you're serving and the people that you work with and lead. Great book. Yeah, I read it for a second time. So that just tells you. So I mean, so many more. I do read constantly. That goes along with my like love of learning, and I think it's just you just never know what you're going to pick up. It may just be one tidbit that changes some of your framework for thinking that comes in handy. It's funny how often something I just read comes in really handy for for real life, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, I would have to say that Unreasonable Hospitality might be the most recommended book on this podcast. I've had it's definitely over like definitely over 10, might be over 20
Yeah.
in terms of the amount of people. And funny enough, it's crazy that you say Ryan Holiday book because just yesterday, Mike Spivey actually messaged me and was like, "Hey, you should read this Ryan Holiday book called Ego
Yeah.
is the Enemy." And I was like, "Oh my God!" So I can't believe that's coming up right now because literally less than 24 hours ago, I just saw it on my
Yeah.
screen, literally putting it into my Amazon cart. So crazy, crazy. I'm kind of freaked out right now. But third to last question here, Scott.
Right.
What are the types of things that you consume, not food, consume on a daily basis? Either that be through social media, so Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Substack, any podcasts you listen to, YouTube, Facebook, there's so many different things. But what are the sorts of things you consume? What is crossing the transom of Scott's mind on a daily basis?
I'm on LinkedIn pretty much every day. So really enjoy that. That's almost the only social media I'm actively involved in. I have like a Facebook account, I have an Instagram account. Uh, I'm just not active on there. That's just not where my mind and interests are. So LinkedIn, I will confess, when I'm brushing my teeth and get ready for bed at night, YouTube Shorts, man. I just really get into the YouTube Shorts. I don't know why. I feel like it's gonna really destroy my attention span, but but it's so addictive. But it's usually like something kind of motivational, or sometimes it's sort of Christian based, and sometimes it's just comedy. Even a certain comedian that keep shows up in my feed because I watched a special or something like that. So I do look at that. But for podcasts and audiobooks, so I do a lot of audiobooks because I work out in the morning, and so I'll read audiobooks. And I start every day. I should be I have like a Bible reading plan, and I do it audio, and that's how I start getting ready for the day. So shaving, brushing my teeth, that time of day, a little more beneficial than YouTube Shorts. I do audio, like a Bible reading, and then once I get through that, I shift to like either an audio book while I'm working out or a podcast. I love the All In podcast. I don't know if that's probably been recommended a million times. I've been listening to it not quite from the beginning, but like pretty early on. I can't believe they're getting so close to 200 episodes now. But I think it's just really good. This guys do a good job. It's an interesting mix of people talking about the economy, the startup world, venture capital, and then right now politics too, and things like that. So it's really interesting. Uh, Built to Sell Radio is another one that I enjoy listening to. Sometimes I go streaky, right? I listen to one like nonstop for a while and then just like consume so much of it, then I almost like need to switch. But Built to Sell Radio is one. And there are some, I hate to shortchange other people with good podcasts.
No, no, please, please. It's a test you could cheat on.
Yeah. I'm cheating right now. I know this audio. I'm opening Spotify and and looking at the Abstract by Spot Draft. I like that when they try to interview typically like general counsel and CLOs and stuff at companies. So that's a good one too. But usually business and law related, and then just sort of the general, not as much general news, but just sort of business news, like that's what I find interesting. That's most of what I consume. I like never go to the movie theater. It gives me anxiety to think about wasting that much time. I know for some people it's relaxation, and literally I can't relax if I'm in there. I'm like, I can't believe I'm spending this much time just sitting in here, you know. at least if you watch a movie at home, you can be on your laptop and like, doing something more productive or something like that. So I definitely have a problem. I have a little bit of a problem. And some of this is inherited from my grandfather that I work construction for, of just like rest, you know. I remember him telling me one time, the weekends are boring. I mean, I think he worked until he was 90. He's like 92 now, and he only stopped because my grandmother's health started to deteriorate so much. He's like, I'm going to be her full-time caretaker, you know. And so that's why he stopped working, and so I have a little bit of that in my DNA. I'm like, I can't just sit around and do nothing. I don't know how to rest, but anyway, so
No, those are great recommendations. And actually, contrary to belief, you may have been the first person to ever recommend the All In podcast. The only
really,
other person to ever recommend it is me. I'm the only
yeah,
one. Because I
so
mean,
good.
I
So good.
love those people so much.
I
Chamath,
don't miss them
Freeberg,
episode.
Sachs, J.
Yes, don't
Cal.
miss
I
an episode.
mean, that is
Okay, who's your favorite? Will you say a favorite, and I'll tell you.
I mean, I love Sachs.
Favorite next. Yeah,
I
yeah,
really do, obviously, because he's PayPal, and so I love all those
yeah,
guys at PayPal. There's some that book about PayPal is like one of my favorite books ever. So I love, but Chamath at the same time, I don't know. It goes back and forth.
yeah.
JCal's great. Sometimes he's a little annoying, but that's all right. He's very smart though.
He's important to be the foil, right?
Exactly. Yes.
They
Yes.
all together are the right mix. Yeah, like all in all, like if I have to balance all my favorite things about each of them, I would say Chamath is, my if I had to just pick one, but I would really love to just hang out with those guys,
Oh yeah.
like that would be one of those things. I could never afford it, but if we could just hang out for a day with those guys, it would be, man, I just feel like you would just walk away with your just so much amazing experience and information and knowledge in your head, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully more people now will start to discover the All In podcast.
Of course, I mean it's definitely one of my favorites. I'm always listening every week. And even the crazy thing about Chamath is like he also plays like super high stakes poker as well. Like he's putting like millions of dollars
Yeah,
on the line playing poker. It's
crazy.
the funniest thing ever. Like it's amazing. It just goes to show what kind of people they are, what kind of personalities they got. And they're unique humans. It's like, oh my God, like these people are really them. Like you cannot there's no facade or anything. It's really, really them. So that's what I really love about it.
Yeah, it's
But
really them. Yeah.
but second to last question here,
Yeah.
Scott, which might not be great because I am going to ask you're always working because you really are working. But what does an ideal Friday night and Sunday morning look for Scott?
Well, yeah, by the time I get to Friday, I do need a few hours. I mean, my perfect Friday night is just like going to a restaurant with my wife and just relaxing and not rushing dinner. Um, and getting home at a reasonable time because we've just acknowledged like we're old. Like we get home before like, people in their 20s even leave the house. So sometimes we're saying, I'm like, we can't leave yet. We're too lame if we leave this early. But just go into nothing fancy necessarily, but one of the restaurants that we enjoy with my wife, and just being absolutely not rushed for dinner on a Friday night and just talking. As much as I love my kids, man, when you got 4 kids, it's sometimes really hard to find that uninterrupted time to talk to your spouse. And so leaving the house is sometimes the best way to do that without them. And since they're old enough to leave on their own, we don't have to find a babysitter anymore. One of them's an adult that I dropped off at college, and then the next oldest one's already driving too. So, um, so that's my Friday night. And Sunday morning, I mean, I mentioned I do the Bible reading. I mean, man, for me, it feels weird if I'm not going to church and worshiping. And I'm going now, moving back to Somerville. It's the church I grew up at. So it's just family. It's like going to spend time with family, and it's not about anything formal or a bunch of show. It's just something that's super, my faith, really important to me, and those people and those relationships really important to me. So just kind of feels like getting fed and the right way to start my week. It is for me. Yeah, it's the right way to start my week. Yeah. So
It's always great when I ask people about their ideal Friday nights and their Sunday mornings, and they're really living out. They're like, "Oh, these are just my weekends. This is how
this is what I do.
exactly." So that's why it's wonderful to hear that. But final question here, Scott. I do this at the end of every single episode. But what are your words of wisdom for the aspiring law students, the current law students, and the legal professionals out there in the world?
Wow. Okay. I would say hard work is still the key. Hard work, and part of that means being reliable. It is just amazing how many people are not reliable. And when you prove yourself to be reliable, meaning you're responsive and you do what you say you're going to do. And sometimes we can't, sometimes things happen, but then you let someone know. So sorry, meant to have this done by this time. These things came up. I'm going to be able to have it to you by such and such time, a little later or something like that. But that, like, responsiveness, communicating honestly, I mean, look, some stuff is your business, personal business. So I don't mean to like overshare, but, and just, man, that hard work and being reliable, it's not, it's not being the smartest person. It's being the one who doesn't quit. I mean, that is just it. And it, that can be some humble pie to really smart people, who, a lot of people who go to law school, who passed the bar, did really well up to that point in their lives, and they've been told how smart and successful they are. Well, in the real world, it's results. And results is hard work, don't quit, be reliable, be responsive, and communicate clearly, and frequently. And man, just keep doing that. And you're going to turn around and notice that, like, you're going somewhere. Yeah.
Well, Scott, beautifully said. But that is the podcast. That is the episode. So, Scott, thank you so much for coming on here, spreading your wisdom, spreading your experiences. And for everyone out there listening, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check us out, lawyersinthemaking.substack.com. Lawyers in the Making, one word, substack.com. And I will see you all in the next one.